Hey boys and girls, before we go to our volume lesson today, we're going to do a little math brain exercise. So if you take a look at the picture, it asks how many packets will it take to fill the container with ketchup? So I want you to try to come up with an estimation. Remember, an estimation is just the closest guess you can come up with. How many of these packets do you think it will take to fill the cup? Give me just a minute to try to think about your answer. If there's someone close to you, mom or dad or brother or sister, let them know what your estimation is. All right, are you ready to find out what the answer is? All right, let's watch the video. All right, so if you came up with 6 packets, great job. All right, let's go to our volume lesson today. Yesterday, we talked about how to measure volume when we're using things like a measuring cup or a graduated cylinder. How do we read that scale? How do we look at the intervals to tell, are they counting by 1s, 2s, 5s, 10s? All right, so today what we're going to do is we're going to do a little work with that, but we're going to add that into a word problem. All right, so take a look at the first word problem. It says Paul has 2 containers. One holds water and the other holds acid, as shown. How much more acid is there than water? And it gives me some different answer choices. All right, now, before I can even look at my question, I need to figure out, well, how much water and how much acid are in each of these containers. So let's first look at water. I notice that my scale is counting by 5s, right? 5, 10, 15, 20. There are some lines, some tick marks in between the 5 and the 10. All right, so I have to figure out, well, are they counting by 1s, by 2s, by 5s, by 10s? Now, if I look here, it looks like they're just counting up by 1s. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. All right, so I know that each of those tick marks in between is just another 1. Well, if I look, it's at the second tick mark for water above the 5. So I just have to count up 5, 6, 7. So in the water container, there are 7 liters. All right, so I'm going to write that down. So water has 7 liters. Remember, my L stands for liters. All right. Now I need to figure out how much acid I have. So if I look at the tick marks here, I see again they're counting by 5s. It looks like each little tick mark between is also going to be a 1. So 15, and it looks like it's just on that first tick mark above the 15, which means there are 16 liters of acid. Okay, so now that I know how much water is in each container, I can now go to my question. My question says, how much more acid is there than water? Well, I know that anytime a question asks me how much more, it is asking me to find the difference. So when I find the difference, I know I need to subtract. All right, so I'm going to see, well, how much more acid? So I'm going to start off with 16 minus 7, that's how much water there is, and I'm going to figure out what my answer is there. Hopefully it's one of the answer choices that I see, and I do see that it's B, 9 liters. So how much more acid is there than water? There's 9 liters more. All right, so do you see how we used the measuring containers to help us solve the word problem? Let's practice another one. All right, this time it says, Sandra has 2 similar containers filled with different amounts of water as shown. How much water in milliliters does Sandra have in total? All right, in total, I already know. Oh, that's asking me to combine, to join these 2 together, which means I'm going to do what operation? I'm going to add. So I know I'm going to be adding these 2 measurements of volume. Now I need to figure out, well, how much liquid is in each one? If I look here, let me look at my intervals, 100, 150, 200, 250. Well, okay, I notice that they're counting by 50s, okay? But there's also a line in the middle of each of those 50s. So I have to figure out, well, what's in between a 0 and a 50? So when I think about 0 and 50, I think about like 50 cents, right? 2 quarters. What would half of 2 quarters be? Well, that would be 25 cents or 1 quarter. So I know that each of these tick marks is going to be like a 25. So I would count 100, 125, 150. I'm going to add 25 more, 175. And I see that is where the water stops. So in the first container, I have 175. This time we're talking about milliliters. Now let me look at my second container. Again, it's counting by 50s. Again, there's a line in the middle which tells me those are each going to be 25s. But oh my goodness, look how lucky we are. It is right on the line with the number. So I see that the second container has 250 milliliters of water. And notice how I put my plus sign there to show that I'm going to be adding those 2 together. All right, so what I want you to do is I want you to try to pause the video and see if you can figure out what is our total going to be. What is our total going to be? All right, if you got 425 milliliters, you are correct. Remember, there's tons of strategies we learned in the beginning of the year to show us how we can add 2 numbers, right? So we should have 425 milliliters in total that Sandra has of water. All right, for this next one, you're going to do it all on your own. Let's look at the last one. All right, read it with me. Cam has 2 similar containers filled with different amounts of water as shown. How much water in milliliters does Cam have in total? So again, you notice that in total tells you what operation you're going to do to figure out how much Cam has in both containers. Pause the video. I want to see an equation and an answer to our question. So if you worked it out, you noticed again the interval, hopefully you noticed that the interval is counted by 50. Again, there were lines in the middle, so that tells me that that was 25. 125 is what you should have gotten for the first container. We're talking about milliliters. In total tells me I'm going to add, so I went ahead and put my plus sign. For the second container, you should have gotten 150 milliliters. All right, and if you added those 2 together, you should have gotten 275 milliliters that Cam has in both containers. All right, so boys and girls, remember that when you're looking at the measuring cups, be sure to pay attention to the intervals. All right, now we're starting to use and find volume when we're talking about word problems. So we'll continue some of that practice again tomorrow. Great job.